Alright, so let's take a look at some other aspects of Athenian society that may have had some appeal. We know again that the Spartan system was based on dictatorship and control of a large population that was essentially enslaved. The Athenians, on the other hand, had the concept of democracy. So we often trace the origins of democracy back to ancient Greece, in particular Athens. So what does it mean to be a citizen in ancient Athens? First of all, you had to be male, you had to be 18 years old, and you had to be born of citizen parents. So you basically had to be a citizen that was born in Athens itself. In addition, they had laws that were voted on and proposed directly by an assembly of all citizens. So every citizen took part in the process of government. Again, keep in mind, not everybody was a citizen. You had to be male, 18, and born of citizen parents. That left out a significant portion of the female population, or maybe even the foreign population, and of course the slaves themselves. Okay, the leader would be chosen by lot. So basically how they decided who their leader would be was sort of a luck of the draw. And they had an executive branch that was composed of a council of 500 men. So that council of 500 men were the ones that made most of the major decisions. Juries, which they had for court trials, varied in size. And there were no attorneys, there were no appeals in the court system, and most trials only lasted one day. Let's compare that to the system of democracy that we have here in the United States. To be a citizen in the United States, you basically have to be born in the United States or have completed a citizenship process. And what that means is that people not born here, what we might consider to be foreign, can come here, and if they take the citizenship test and live here a specific number of years, they can pass that test and become actually citizens of the United States. In fact, many Americans to this day are foreign born and actually come here and become citizens. Also, representatives were elected to propose and vote on laws. So we don't have a direct democracy where everybody gets to vote on every issue. Instead, we elect representatives to go down to Congress, for instance, and they propose and vote on the laws on our behalf. That's why it's called a representative democracy. We also elect a president. Okay, so it's not drawn by lot, but we actually choose which president we'll pick. The executive branch is made up of an elected and appointed officials. So in some cases, the president gets to choose who his officials will be, like the Secretary of State, for instance, or the Secretary of Commerce. But some officials are in fact elected officials. And the jury is composed of 12 jurors in our country. So what happens is if you have to go to court and you have to be in front of a jury of your peers, there'll be 12 jurors there to hear the case. And they should be people that come from your local community who have similar background and sort of status as you do. And then defendants and plaintiffs have attorneys. In fact, we also have a very long appeals process. So that's very different than what we saw in ancient Athens as well. So what do both Athenian and U.S. democracy have that's in common? First of all, citizens exercise political power in both systems. There's 3 branches of government in both systems. Both systems have a legislative branch that passes laws, and they each have an executive branch that carries out those laws. And there's also a judicial branch that conducts trials with paid jurors. So these are the similarities that you'll find between Athenian and U.S. democracy. So let's just take a quick look at this chart. It's very similar to the one that's in your journal and your textbook, and it allows you to see both the differences on either side and the similarities in the center. So you might want to study this Venn diagram, and it should help you to understand basically the differences and similarities between the direct democracy of ancient Athens and the indirect democracy of both the United States. So keep in mind, we trace our democratic heritage all the way back to ancient Athens, and although there are some similarities and there's some differences, it's essentially a democratic